You're listening to Doctor Who Too Hot for TV. Welcome to The Wil-deux-ness Part 2.
Too hot for TV.
So welcome back. We're here for The Wil-deux-ness Part 2, and I've got a very special guest who's going to launch us into this new era of non-televised Doctor Who. It's only fucking Donald Trump.
I'll tell you what, it's a tremendous honor to be appearing here on Too Hot for TV. Thank you very much. I got to be honest with you, the new Wil-deux-ness is a disaster. A lot of people are saying it. I'm here with Dylan Reese, crazy Dylan Reese, downtime Dylan, big Dill time. A guy I never knew. I never met the guy, but he's a great friend. We had a lot of great parties, excuse me. We never met. A lot of people say we met, but we never met. But he's a smart guy. He's a tough guy. And that's what we need more of. And if anybody knows the Wil-deux-ness, it's Downtime Dylan. I never met the guy, but he's a great friend. We play golf at Mar-a-Lago every week. No more questions. Thank you very much, China.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. What a way to launch off this new Wil-deux-ness. So here we are. We've just had Mayday broadcast, and we're back in the Wil-deux-ness years again. We're expecting a Hath trilogy from BBV coming up very shortly. RTD has announced he'll be writing a BBC Schools maths programme entitled Search Out Finance, and Christopher Nolan's gritty reboot will turn out to be a TV pilot without his involvement, starring Alfie Allen as the Doctor and Oscar Isaacs as the Master, and it'll do little to excite the masses. And here to usher in this brave new world, it's Liam. Liam, how are you?
Well, I'm delighted. I mean, the last time we were inside the confines of the Too Hot for TV Citadel, Doctor Who was a television program that was currently airing. So I feel like, I like to think of myself, Dylan, to put it in a context that I suppose a lot of Doctor Who fans might not be overly familiar with. As I like to consider myself the Bonnie Blue of Doctor Who podcasts. If it can be fucked, I fucked it. So there you are. There you go. So yeah,
Excellent.
Just call me Bond.
Well, Bond. So I think for absolute clarity here, we're recording this in the middle of March before the new series has started. But this will be dropping just after May Day. And we have every reason to believe that that'll be the last regular episode of the show for some time.
Absolutely.
I mean, maybe we're wrong, and maybe we'll put this out and we'll look like fools, but
it'll be the first time.
So what do we think we might have just seen on the television without giving too much away?
They will
have seen it.
No, you guys will have seen it anyway. So we're just kind of like pissing in the dark. It's a bit like a Keir Starmer manifesto.
You mean we're going to be wrong about everything?
We'll
go back on everything.
Yeah, be wrong about everything. But like one of my old friends at To Entertain once said, to select Wil-deux-ness navigation, press enter now. But I'm sure that you guys have involved a nice episode there. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'd be very surprised if Jonah Hauer-King wasn't the MVP of the entire enterprise, because the man's just amazing. I mean, we've got to the point now where I pretty much would turn up to listen to him recite the Los Angeles telephone directory. Do you know what I mean? He was amazing in tattooist of outfits. And, anybody that can go from playing Prince Eric from the Under the Sea to shall we say, an elemental friend of the Doctor who might find that 50 pence can turn him on his heel. But yeah, here from the distance of like mid-March, of course, we wouldn't know about any of that stuff.
All we know is that
there's a lot of bones in it.
A lot of bones. Some EPK was recorded. It seemed to take usually EPK's studio for a day, but they went on location for something like 12 days.
Yeah, there's nothing says EPK like doing 12 days on location with Anisha Dobson, Steph Diwali. Oh, you guys have just seen Steph come back, so hey, Steph. And a variety of interesting guest stars lead into a mortal wound or two. But,
there may or may not have been a Dalek. We don't know. We don't think there was.
May have not been a Dalek, but I'm fairly certain that the BBC continuity announcer has just had to wait for somebody to fling their head back and explode into flame. But you didn't see the end of it, ladies and gents. So who knows?
No, we don't know how long he's burning for, who he's going to turn into. I mean, we could have a situation like the flood here, couldn't we?
Well, it's I mean, I'm sure we'll touch on that later. But you would almost think it had been engineered to be in suspended burning animation for the better part of a decade, which
that's gonna hurt.
Yeah, well, I had a similar thing the first time I got crabs, but that was entirely down to very poor disco lighting.
So we'll talk a little bit about the future of the show later on, because I mean, we're just giving our opinion now, and I said we could be very wrong, but I think we will get some things right and some things wrong. But I don't think that James McAvoy's just been revealed to be the 15th, 16th.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if we had another bi-generation. But then, having said that, I don't really think that would be expeditious in terms of leaving a franchise on a poor's note that entitles. Because let's be brutally honest with you. I mean, we'll get into this a little bit later, but just looking at it and doing some hard maths on it. Russell is 61, April 27th. So happy belated birthday now, Russ. Stephen Moffat's 63 in November, and Mark Gatiss is 58 in October. I'm willing to bet that the next showrunner would probably be somebody that sat down and watched the Tennant and Smith years.
Yeah. So it's probably in their early 20s right now.
In their early 20s, probably, maybe even listening to this podcast.
We can only hope.
If
you are, adapt Father Time.
Oh, please do. Yeah. Nice little 5-part miniseries for either time. Let's get some of those 80s hairstyles on. I mean, Shoots would have loved that. All them power suits have been like fucking Dynasty on ice.
So it's not the first time in the history of the show that something's been left on an open-ended regeneration. We nearly had it for Jodie Whittaker, but if you go much, 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 much further back,
way back,
there was something in around 1969.
1969 was probably the first of these occasions that we've had a little moratorium in our beloved show.
Which was a TV comic starring the Second Doctor from Polystar Publications Limited called The Night Walkers.
Love him.
That was released in TV comic 934 to 936, the 8th to the 22nd of November 1969. No other releases because Doctor Who's off the telly for obvious reasons. And the only thing that was released was this fucking comic. So what is it?
So the Night Walkers, we're going to spiral back a little bit, and without sounding like Ian Levine when he suddenly decided that his mobile phone bill needs to be transferred to a new operator. In the tail end of 1969, well, in the mid, should we say 1969? So the War Games was shooting from the 23rd of March to the 1st of April. So it ended on an April Fool, who knew? And as you say, The Night Walkers was released from the 8th to the 22nd of November. Now, TV Comic, which was a periodical at the time, had a variety of different strips from different productions, different cult television shows, and Doctor Who was only one of those. Well, obviously, the War Games finished airing in June. So to keep momentum of an ongoing franchise, which by necessity had been put on pause before John Pertwee started, TV Comic John Cannon, whose ability, and I say this as deep beloved as an artist, ability to capture Patrick Troughton bordered on the obscene. They decided...
I look more like Patrick Troughton.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You've got a better profile, and I believe you stop at less women's houses to hand them money. But
I stop at their houses, I just don't hand any money over.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that's just me with my proclivities then. So TV Comic decided that to fill the stopgap, they introduced a small little niche caveat into the canon, where they said that post being exiled to Earth at the end of the War Games, episode 10, the Second Doctor was actually managed to escape the Time Lords for the final part of the sentence in changing his appearance.
The birth of season 6B, doesn't it?
6B, yeah. No Jamie, no grey hair, and no discouraging holidays in Seville with Jacqueline Pearce flashing the waiter to get an extra round of drinks for John and Gary. But what you did have was the character residing at the rather luxurious Carlton Grange Hotel.
Oh, lovely.
Where they set themselves up as a little bit of a celebrity.
Because if you're going to hide from anybody,
of course,
you should go on television.
Of course, yeah. Well, it's worked so well with half the cast of Love Island. And from the distance of March 2025 to May 2025, we can only hope that Danny Jones from McFly's marriage still remains intact. scooching back to Patrick Troughton, another master of infidelity. The second Doctor is at the Carlton Grange Hotel. He sets himself up and he begins a little bit of a sideline hustle. He's not selling thimbles and knitted toys on eBay. He's actually going around solving local folklore mysteries.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the start of his first comic, which is Action in Exile, where he does...
Does he get some action in Exile?
Yeah. Well, I think he might have done, actually. I think he got far too much action. There's a fan in Georgia that could tell us about that. But allegedly.
She was at the funeral, though.
Was she? Was she in costume too? And
she was just a John Pertwee, really weird.
Wow, no wonder they reversed the fucking polarity. So Action in Exile sees the Doctor start up this part of their existence, and it kind of peters along, and it's deliberately designed as a stopgap before the season continues with Spearhead from Space to kind of just motor along and provide some forward adventures for the Doctor that link up. And boy, does it link up, which brings us to the Nightwalkers, which is the last of those TV comic Patrick Troughton stories, Dylan.
Yeah, in which the Doctor goes to investigate some walking scarecrows. Now, obviously, the influences are right there for the new series in Human Nature, Family of Blood. But why? Why are these scarecrows walking? What could possibly have made them do it? Is it a dastardly deed by the Daleks? Is it a magician?
Who knows? Well, we do, but yeah, we fucking do. I mean, to be fair, most people have done since 1969. But for the sake of argument, we could say it was either a Lily Phillips going to a nursing home deciding to kind of fornicate with a load of pensioners, or they could have been reanimated by the salient energy of the mysterious Time Lords.
I know. I mean, who would have thunk it that's how the Time Lords, having just chased the Doctor down in the War Games, using all their advanced technology and seemingly magical powers, decided the best way to capture him this time was to animate some scarecrows.
Absolutely.
And not even send them after him.
Well, wait in a field for him to come to them. Yeah. It's a bit like a kind of like cult science fiction version of child support payments.
Which Patrick Troughton would know a lot about.
Well, I think he advised on that continuity part of the script.
It's a very, very slight story written by Roger Noel Cook. In fact, I could barely call it a story at all. You won't have heard this, but there is an episode where we look at this TV comic stuff on the Quarks.
Oh, wow.
And Roger was not big on plot. It was really like, I've got 8 panels that I need to fill.
Yeah.
And so there'll be a bit of a run around and then they'll leave.
I mean, it reminds me a little bit to kind of go on a tangent. I remember watching a documentary on the first Batman film in '89, and Tim Burton was talking about the power of iconography. You know, he was talking about, you got the Coca-Cola can, you've got Marilyn Monroe's face, you've got the Roy Lichtenstein prints, you got the bat symbol. Canon gets that. It's very much, it's a very slight story, but some of the panels are really vivid. There's some great images of the second Doctor being effectively levitating through a field, being captured by the scarecrows.
So that's John Canning, the artist.
John Canning, the artist.
He's a really good artist, except when it comes to drawing Patrick Troughton.
In terms of actually capturing comic strips, he's really got it. It's just the Doctor looks fuck all like their character on television.
Do we think it's because they don't want to pay the image rights rather than...
That was the thing at that time. Yeah, I mean, I remember reading a story. Probably one of the listeners will be able to correct me about my folly. But for some of the first Tom Baker scripts for the TV comic, they actually redrew over a load of old Pertwee strips.
That wouldn't surprise me. There's at least one of these Troughton ones that ends up as a Tom Baker one as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, you get it with the annuals, don't you? That they only want to pay for the Doctor's.
Oh, yeah, I get it. You know, I do get it. I mean, it was a different world then, you know, and that sort of thing carried all the way through. You know, you look at the 80s and the amount of trouble that the Target covers had getting Anthony Ainley to commit to his license. I believe he charged an additional fee for his wig. But that's not.
Well, that wig's still doing conventions.
It is, yeah. It's last thing I know, it's attending Hooverville, but it's asked for its own suite.
The Premier Inn.
The Premier Inn wants its own Toby breakfast as well.
The presidential suite there.
Well, we don't maybe have to get Donald back in here again. We've had quite enough with President 47.
So it's a very, very slight story.
Sure.
I don't really have an awful lot to say about it. But how does it handle the regen? Because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, of course. I mean, going into what I'm sure we'll discuss later. So the regen's handled really quite nicely. So the Scarecrows have come to Earth to carry out the last remaining part of the sentence, and that is the actual change of appearance. So the Doctor's been exiled to Earth. He's lost control of his TARDIS. He doesn't know how to use it. And they actually appear with the TARDIS, capture him. It's quite a melancholy end for the Doctor, actually. The last thing he actually says in the TV comic is that he addresses the farmer whose field that they're haunting, so to speak, and assures him that he won't have any more trouble with his scarecrows from this point on. And at that point, he's trapped inside a force field of light, much like I am when I used to visit Canal Street, and carried into the TARDIS, where the change of appearance begins. And there's a lovely line, which did make me chuckle, and you can almost imagine it being delivered by, some sort of waggish actor from the late 1960s who's just come off an episode of Target, where it says, we must leave before the change of regeneration takes place. Those scarecrows are thinking, fuck that, I'm not going to end up in fucking RHS Weasley.
And of course, what that means is that the second Doctor's final words are actually, fear no more, Hogan. After this dreadful night has passed, your scarecrows will not walk again.
It's better than keep warm.
Yeah, it is. Or Shooties, where's my car?
Yeah.
I'll cut
that. Yeah. No, keep that in. Keep that in. You should have just said, where's the car that Showmasters promised me? It's there underneath the mountain of cash on stage left.
I don't know about you, but I've got to the point now where I no longer know, ever since, Jodie Whittaker was the 13th Doctor, and now I don't know what number Doctor we're on.
I think we've actually reached the point now where, and I'm going to say something very contentious that a lot of your listeners who are more kind of chronologically minded may disagree with. I don't think it fucking matters anymore.
No, it doesn't.
I just think you have the current Doctor.
Do you know what it is, though? Older fans refer to the Doctors by the actor's name. Newer fans are very...
It's by the numbers,
it's 9, or it's 10, or it's 4.
I like to be a prick every now and then when we're in the BFR bar and just say, I'm a Galaccio fan. Just watch the whole fucking thing, kind of, fuck that bastard.
Edmund Warwick was always my favourite.
Edmund Warwick, wasn't he a fucking superb man? I used to love... Yeah, he was great.
So the final panel is the Doctor about to regenerate again.
And that's actually that's probably one of the best panels in it, because they've just drawn the eyes and the nose, and the face is kind of contorted in a swirling energy. It's not at all unlike the cheap VFX they used in Time of the Rani, actually. You almost wonder if they got the kind of inspiration from that, but there we are.
Yeah. But it ties in quite nicely to something that almost happened with the Flood comic strip.
It did. Now, we talk about legal wranglings and meanderings and various intellectual properties. So, casting our mind a little bit further, we're going to jump forward in time to 2004. When the then editor of Doctor Who magazine, Clayton Hickman and Scott Gray, who's in charge of the strip, decided they were going to conclude the Eighth Doctor's adventures. They wanted to do a very epic send-off for the McGann Doctor. They wanted to do everything was a celebration of the strip, of the history of that strip. And one of the things that a lot of people retrospectively have kind of missed about this is that it's narrated by an unknown person who we presume is going to be his departed companions, one of them. It actually turns out to be Izzy Sinclair, who was with the Eighth Doctor for the majority of it. But there's actually a lovely cameo in the last part from Dr. Grace Holloway.
Yeah.
Now, whether they paid Universal, Fox, and Daphne Ashford for that, I don't think they did. I would imagine because due to the slight change of hairstyle, it flew a little bit under the radar. But Daphne, if you're listening, don't worry, darling. There's a convention you can attend. You'll make up the shortfall. It's fine. But it became apparent as the show goes on, and Clayton and Scott, I believe, have talked about this in interviews since, especially in the graphic novel, which I urge all of you to buy because it's a must-buy. Although, admittedly, I think you probably would have to remortgage your house to get it on eBay now. That they just didn't know how many parts it was going to be. Yeah. So they were doing it month by month as BBC Wales was moving on with the series.
Because the release date hadn't been confirmed.
It hadn't been confirmed.
There's always a chance it could have.
And we all know about how tumultuous that first season was in terms of production.
I believe a few things went wrong.
Yeah, there were some runners up against walls.
There was some burning sofas.
I'm going to reiterate my previous claim that Mr. Barnfather, please get Keith Boak to do a Mythmakers, because I'd really like to see that. Anyway, moving on. So the Flood was motoring on under its own steam. Now, interestingly enough, and I'm sure, I don't know if you've covered the Flood on a separate episode.
Yeah, me and Jackson did it quite early on.
But there's some amazing iconography in that. Some of the actual cliffhangers are just beautifully arresting images. There's the futuristic new Cyberman. There's all the location stuff that's been done at Camden Lock. There's a wonderful panel of the new Cybermen emerging from their kind of palatial flying spaceship above Big Ben.
One of my favourite rumours was that when David Tennant was announced coming back for the specials, that one of them was going to be an adaptation of The Flood, which I sorely wish it was.
Amazing.
But people just went, he's in Camden.
Yeah.
They saw the cyber shop that's
Cyber
there.
Dog.
That's been there for
Other
years.
shops are available.
Yeah, other dogs.
Yeah.
And they just put two and two together. It's a shame because I would have rather had that than the Star Beast. But a lot of people seem to like that, so I'm the outlier.
Shakuna Sun Goat, guys. But so I mean, there's some great iconography in it, and I think that in terms of using the strip as a visual medium to tell a Doctor Who story, it succeeds beautifully to such an extent that one might argue that Russell has been ripping off various elements of that in his season finales for the last 15 years ever since.
He said he didn't like the Cybermen and didn't know what to do with them until he read The Flood, and then he was like, okay, that gives me. I mean, and I think it's one of the most exciting cyber designs.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't look human.
No.
And I understand the limitations they're working.
It reminds me very much, to get a little bit esoteric there, of like the Max Schreck Nosferatu. So it's very stretched and elongated and almost skeletal.
Yeah.
With like these bits of armor bolted onto it. Now you could potentially do that on a TV series, but you would have to hire a lot of, your Ian Whites of the world, 7 foot tall plus actors.
Yeah, or do it all CG.
Or do it all CG. Which I think the cost for that would be, financially non-conducive.
I mean, I'm not saying they should do this, but one of my favourite things they do with Terminator Salvation is they build these big cyborg costumes and then they use CG to paint out the other bit. So that's a way to do it. But anyway, I'm not doing that.
We digress. Yeah. But I did hear the episode that you did about the Terminator 2 ride, which actually I believe is potentially, controversial statement here, the best Terminator thing since Terminator 2 that's been done.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
Absolutely.
It's got the full gang there.
Not despite the fact, I mean, there's a lot to be said about the Chronicles, mainly because I just like to watch it on mute, look at Summer Glau. But that's a completely different story for a different time. But anyway, we digress. We go back to the Flood. So in the Flood, as it was motoring on, they had no idea about how it was going to end. Now, interestingly, Russell was in good conversations and good spirits, and I believe he was actually one of the first conversations they had at BBC Wales with Mal Young, is that they wanted to make sure that DWM was able to continue as an independent entity to cover it. So there were a lot of conversations.
And anything else was pretty much like,
we're taking it back in. Yeah. If it's been leased out, we want it all to be under an umbrella brand. So, but the logistics of kind of media lawyers, as they were, meant that they were hit with certain restrictions. So Russell actually, in a very interesting turn of affairs, and brings us nicely back to our central theme, which we've drifted away from. Russell actually offered Clayton and Scott the opportunity to show the regeneration from the 8th Doctor into the 9th.
Which is wild.
Which is amazing, and it shows you that's where the strip has come of age. And for any other accolade, you can imagine, they, ever since Endgame in 96, DWM had been the only visual form of watching the 8th Doctor mature, evolve. And that was its coming of age. That was its kind of reward, basically, to be offered that. I think it's and it's a testament to the work that Clayton and Alan Barnes and Scott did on that strip, that it stands up today.
What's interesting about that is, though, Gary Russell turns to Russell and goes, do you want us to start dropping things in, like any sort of plot arcs or using the Slitheen or something? He went, no. It's completely separate. Yeah. You do what you're doing, we do what ours.
We don't want any link up.
Yeah.
So for them to be offered that just shows you. But it came with certain conditions. Not that I sound like I'm a master of probate after the passing of several of my own family members, but I'm not averse to kind of legal restrictions. But anyway, they said that the 9th Doctor could not be shown with any companion other than Rose's Billie Piper.
Yeah.
Okay, fair dues. You also couldn't have Paul McGann in the comic strip once the first episode of Christopher Eccleston had aired. And most torturously, you conversely could not show Christopher Eccleston even for one panel in any episode of the strip before Rose had aired.
Right.
So
yeah, you're in a limbo.
That's a limbo. So they went back and forth on this, and if you've got the Flood graphic novel, Martin Geraghty's managed to actually do a panel of a post-regenerative Chris in McGann's waistcoat and Byronic shirt in the TARDIS with Destry watching him over him. And it's a beautiful image. It's a wonderfully arresting image. However, it was one that legally could not be done.
Yeah.
So Russell, being the workhorse that he was, went to Clayton and Scott, and they had a bit of a thing about this, and they tried to do a work around it. Now, for those of your listeners who are familiar with Marvel Comics, there is a character called Dr. Dormammu. And Dr. Dormammu is a very interesting villainous character who is basically a super villain whose head is entirely engulfed in a plume of flame, much like the steam that comes out of Omega's kettle in the antimatter universe. Except it's fire. And of course, we've never seen any Doctor explode into flame ever since.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Especially not about 52 minutes ago on BBC One. But and Disney Plus were available.
I'd
only
say
for the
25 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. I never did know how I keep a measure of time, as my current lady friend said. But we were basically, Dr. Dormammu is a supervillain whose head is enclosed in flame. And Russell said, and I can't do a Russell impersonation, so I do apologize to the lawyers, why don't we do an episode with Dr. Dormammu where he's in mid-regeneration and his head is enclosed in fire, but obviously that story will have to park Destry, and at the very end of it, he will complete the regeneration and turn into Christopher Eccleston. Well, Russell, that presents certain kind of, narrative constraints. One couldn't do an episode where the Doctor was meeting Amelia Earhart to give her an example about how to fly her plane.
If his head was on fire.
And she wondered why he looked like a kind of a mid-progression Burns victim. So you begin to see why that was, not really an option on the table. And so for all of the logistic reasons that I've just previously outlined, they very reluctantly went back to Russell and thanked him for the opportunity, but said that it wasn't going to be doable.
So they went the survival route.
Yeah.
So the sunset, which is
Paul McGann mentioned something about wanting a new coat made of leather and walks over a hill.
Yeah. Past a cow.
That's it. Yeah. Past a cow. Bit insensitive.
Yeah. But it's a nice.
Make cows great again.
It's a nice way to end that version of that era.
It is. It's beautiful.
And it's that thing of, at the end of survival, the infinite possibility of more adventures.
Yeah.
Rather than being trapped in some sort of limbo. We didn't rate the Night Walkers.
No. Well, Dylan, I think that we are now in what I'm going to coin the Wil-deux-ness. Please feel free, people, to take that up. Wil-deux-ness. See, it's almost like I know what I'm doing. I got GCSEs, man. They may look like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I got GCSEs to spare. So, clanger, banger, average, meander.
Yeah.
Well, what can I say? I'm going to go with this is, for its importance in the canon, it clangs. But there's nothing more average and meandering than going wandering through a field looking for a Wurzel Gummidge knockoff.
So, I mean, in many ways, it's quite profound.
It really is. It's almost like it was reaching out to John Pertwee's holiday home.
Indeed, in Mallorca.
It's a great meander. It's far from average, but it's a great little meander.
It is, and beautifully, it's very short. So that's
mercifully, yeah, mercifully short.
So.
It's the erectile dysfunction of Doctor Who comics.
Too hot for TV.
So there's been another point in the show's history where the future has been very uncertain.
Absolutely.
There was obviously the hiatus in '86, and then the show comes back. And I guess they're not sure they're going to get another season. All sorts of drama behind the scenes, which I imagine will come to in a future podcast.
Well, indeed.
So a bit of background. Trial of the Time Lord goes through various writers, various things. There's people commissioned to do scripts that don't do scripts. So Eric Saward ends up falling back on the usual writers, but he's very keen to have Robert Holmes involved.
And why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Why not?
Holmes delivers Mysterious Planet and is going to write the final two-parter. Holmes selfishly gets very ill and dies.
We've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. Which understandably is very upsetting because
I don't doubt it. Yeah.
They were mates, you know, and Saward looked up to Holmes. And so Saward's forced to write an episode himself. I mean, we all know the history. Him and JNT fall out. There's lots of drama. And on the 1st of June, 1986, Eric Saward withdraws his script for episode 14 of Trial of a Time Lord Part 14, known as Time Inc. or Time Incorporated. At the time of its withdrawal, rather than this broadcast, it didn't get broadcast.
Absolutely.
There wasn't a lot going on, but Doctor Who, the Mark of the Rani book was published, and the Doctor Who magazine Summer Special 1986 news. We had Linda Bellingham, Joan Sims, and Tony Selby all announced as joining the new series.
Fantastic.
And the comic strip was Time Bomb, featuring the Sixth Doctor and Frobisher. But little did the people reading Doctor Who magazine know that all was not well behind the scenes.
No.
I'm sure if they read DWB, they did. But
Gary Lee, God bless you.
Yeah,
You were a prophet. You were about 40 years too early, dear boy.
Where is he now? Well, I mean, that's another podcast.
That is another podcast. Dylan wants you on his own summer special.
So this script is pulled out of the production office, withdrawn, and Pip and Jane Baker are pulled in to write what became Trial of the Time Lord Part 14. And they know the settings, and they've got the sets. They know where they want to
He
film.
gave them Polaroids
Yeah.
of the locations and said, that's what you have to work with.
And they worked with a BBC lawyer to make sure it didn't, the two scripts weren't the same.
Yeah.
But through the wonders and magic of the internet, we've tracked down said script. Is it a long-lost classic?
Time Incorporated. Weirdly, I can see why JNT didn't want to go with it. I guess why he thought that after a 14-week story, it would be potentially anticlimactic. However, in retrospect, especially considering what happened with the lead actor after the season was broadcast, it potentially would have been a more visually arresting finish to the season.
Yeah, because you could have... So basically what happens is there's a time vent in the Valeyard's TARDIS that's going to destroy the universe or some old bollocks.
Yeah. Standard.
Yeah, and the Doctor is basically... him and the Valeyard fall into it, like the Reichenbach Hall.
Yeah, it's very much Reichenbach Fall moment.
And they're trapped in there forever. And even, I think it's either the Keeper of the Matrix or the Inquisitor says, he's still alive, but we can't get him out. It's up to them.
It's up to his own ingenuity to get himself free. Yeah. It's an amazing ending. Visually, I'm going to sound like Mary Whitehouse here, but in my mind's eye, I kind of imagine it looking a little bit visually like the end of Genesis with the tumbling through space through the vent.
But it probably would have looked more like Time Lash.
Yeah, I do feel for Colin's Doctor. I mean, in this reality, he fell off an exercise bike and bumped his head. And in this version of the script, he fell through a fucking doorway.
He's a clumsy bugger.
I was going to say,
he was, well, maybe
me.
he was dyspraxic. He was the original Ryan.
He was. He gave Tosin Cole notes about how to fall through a door.
Had you ever read this script before?
No, you know what? It's one of those, I mean, you just said it yourself a minute ago. It's one of those eternal kind of, I think we've kind of soaked it up in fan lore.
We all know about it.
But I've never actually officially sought it out to digest it. And there's a couple of things in there that are really quite interesting. You can tell that Eric Saward is very much writing it on autopilot. I mean, I've had my, I'm sure a lot of people have, I've had my fair share of loss and grief. And you can tell this is somebody who's effectively relying on a massive fidelity to Bob Holmes, his work, his ethics, and his type of storytelling. But it's a weird marriage of the two. It's very nihilistic. It's very downbeat, you know?
Yeah.
Interestingly, I urge you to take it, you guys to seek it out if you want to have more of an idea what I'm speaking of. There's one bit which is where they're set and they're in a circular corridor. So we all know Doctor Who loves a corridor, but this corridor is made of fucking circles. I mean, okay, it's playing on the TARDIS iconography and stuff, but it's a circular corridor with no beginning and no end, and it keeps repeating within itself. And in that scene, there's actually, and this is ultra fan wanky, there's actually an in-universe explanation about why the Sixth Doctor speaks in such advanced idioms of vernacular. It almost feels like it's the era apologizing for its preoccupation with language and being overly verbose, which is unnecessary and bizarre, but interesting nonetheless.
It's a bizarre script because it also feels like, compared to the television version we get, not a lot seems to happen in this version compared to the other.
No, there's a lot of walking about. And originally, I know Bob Holmes, in his version of Part 13, had a whole subplot about Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
And I think the original cliffhanger for part 13 was the Doctor being thrown off a wharf by the Riffer.
Oh, interesting.
Riffer? There you go. But I love I've always said when people ask me about, I mean, I'm fairly ambivalent on Collins' era, but I love part 13 of Trial. And I think that the cliffhanger with the hands reaching up through the mud flats is probably one of, if not top 3, most visually arresting of the 1980s.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a nightmare image,
Mm.
and it's so simple, and that's when Doctor Who's at its most effective. No continuity in that one scene. It's all just visual, and you can cling to it. God knows what fucking Mary Whitehouse would have made of it, but it was brilliant. So this version of part 14, it's very downbeat. It's very downbeat. But I mean, I was just stunned at the beginning of it. I find it mind-boggling how you've got Jonathan Powell, who was the then controller of BBC One, Michael Grade was just moving on, going to Channel 4. Both of them hated the show. This has been well documented.
Yeah.
Both of them were savvy enough media personalities to know that handled correctly and given the right infusion of creativity and money, sadly, which I know they weren't prepared to give, it was a valuable show to the corporation in terms of revenue. Now, what I find mind-boggling is that you've taken a show off air for 18 months, effectively a backdoor cancellation.
Yeah.
You've had a public reprieve, and your answer to reviving that is to bring in exactly the same creative team that you suspended 18 months before and tell them to carry on as you were.
It's insane that they weren't replaced.
I find that absolutely mind-boggling. And if anything, that shows you that nobody at that corporation at that time had a fucking clue what to do with the show.
No, they weren't interested in it.
No.
And so the only person they had, and they didn't want to move J&T on.
No, because they didn't want him to do anything else.
Yeah. So it was just a very sort of, it was just the fucking albatross around his neck.
Yeah. And I think they wanted, and this has all been well documented, but I mean, you touched on it in your kind of prefab there, but the timeline with Time Incorporated is stunning. February 4th, 86, Holmes is commissioned to write 13 and 14. He basically goes in and pitches his own version of the final problem. February 24th, Jonathan Powell writes to JNT's office with a point-by-point breakdown of how much he hates the mysterious planet.
Yeah.
So Robert Holmes, who's knee-deep in writing episode 13 and 14, is then told to go back and completely rework 1 to 4 to make it more accessible for Mr. Powell. Early March, he's rushed to hospital in a coma. April 2nd, Saward resigns. May 24th, Holmes dies. June 1st, as you said, Saward withdraws the permission. That's a hell of a timeline within 9-10 weeks.
That's a bad few weeks in the office.
That's not good. This was a show in disarray.
Yeah.
And nobody quite knew what to fucking do with it. And so Saward did the only thing he thought he could do, which was try to have fidelity to what Bob Holmes had laid out. And ironically, if they had had the temerity and the strength to go with it probably would have lent them with an immediate get-out clause for a BBC that just wanted to get rid of Colin Baker.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is, I do think the Pip and Jane version is better.
Yes. It's more in keeping with the spirit of Doctor Who as a show.
And I think it's more action-packed. And I think, it feels like a satisfying conclusion, whereas this goes, we don't know what to do with them, let's stick them in a bin.
Let them fall through a door.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about it is, it wasn't scrapped because it wasn't very good, no matter what we think of it. It was scrapped because Saward wouldn't change the ending. So there is a world where we got this script, but without that ending. And he is right to say it doesn't work without that ending, because otherwise it's just quite fucking boring.
Yeah. I mean, there is another world in another universe, I would imagine, where, the first story of season 24 is Melanie Bush in Pease Pottage, and the TARDIS lands, and McCoy staggers out and falls over in Colin Baker's costume.
It's just weird that they would never think of.
It's so simple.
Yeah,
it's so simple. But as with most things, I think that the best things in life come when you have the gumption and the testicular fortitude to move forward and actually say, do you know what, this is a fucking risk, but we're going to do it. If we fail, we fail big. But this, for better or worse, will move the show forward. And I think that I can understand JNT wanting to provide a conclusive ending, but I think that dramatically, yeah, this is your Holmes and Watson welcome back fall moment.
I don't think it's the conclusive ending or the non-conclusive ending that he thinks it is, because the Doctor and the companion going off into the universe are the same as at the end of Trial. I mean, if they were going to end the show on Blackpool before, then they'll fucking end it on that as well.
And it's much more of a dramatic ending.
Whereas this says, come back next season to find out what happens.
You're giving the audience a reason to tune back in.
I understand if they're going, he's dead, that's it. But this version is very clearly stated that the Doctor's still out there, and what a dramatic hook to get people to tune in next time.
I like to call this Chris Carter syndrome. And now I love the X-Files to pieces. It's probably my second love after Who. But that man doesn't know how to fucking end a show. The X-Files had about 4 or 5 endings, and each of them was successively less wholesome than the last and less satisfying. And that's what I think. I think, yes, it had problems. Yes, it wouldn't have pleased everybody. But fucking hell, Doctor Who never does. I mean, we've just seen that. I think that had it ended with our time vent ending, I think we probably would have had more of a solid audience base of interest leading into the next season, and potentially helping Sylvester make his debut.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or David Fielder, had he been cast.
It's a really interesting glimpse into what could have happened. I think J&T was right to scrap it. I think Saward's running on empty. As I said, they basically go from the sand dunes and being pulled down to the sand dunes to the fantasy factory, which is really diluted in this one. It's very like, you go and see Mr. Popperwick, that's it.
Popperwick's basically just a Jacob Marley character in this. He's just a phantom.
And then sort of the last sort of 15 minutes or so in the TARDIS. It's the Master that helps the Doctor out of the hands and the sanding.
That's it.
And then the Master shows up in the TARDIS after they've been sucked into the time vent to save Glitz, which is weird. I don't know why he would do that.
And you've got to be honest, Dylan. We've all had nights where we've been sucked off to help Tony sell.
There's this weird thing where it feels like the Master's trying to team up with Glitz at the end. Now, there's a big finish box out.
Yeah, absolutely. John Coleshaw could play both parts. He could literally duet with himself. I mean, fucking hell. That's probably his idea of heaven.
But Mel does virtually nothing. She's so ineffective.
She's redundant.
Whereas in the other version, she ends up in the action, in the Matrix.
Yeah, there's no agency for the character. And you can tell that Saward's not overly happy with the character. He doesn't really give her anything to do. She's got no dramatic agency at all. She's just a cipher watching events.
Yeah, I think the Master, Blitz, and indeed Mel just don't need to be there at all. I mean, you could argue that in the main version, but I think they're more intrinsic to the plot and the
true. But you got a megabyte modem, and I'm there for that. Do you know what I mean?
The trial stuff seems even more ineffective than it does in the transmitted version.
I kind of get the impression that the trial stuff in this version of the script just exists so they can blow up the fucking courtroom.
Yeah,
because everybody was sick of the set by this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And the dialogue is terrible. There is a particular lot like. We have a go at Pip and Jane Baker's dialogue.
Yeah.
At least it's interesting. There's a moment where the Doctor just sort of goes, allied with my worst enemy against my future self, something has gone very wrong. It's like, it's that George Lucas thing of you can write this shit, but you can't say
of course. I mean, you can just literally, and one of the things I love about these scripts is that, we've all watched the rushes and the footage on the collection sets of the actors furiously going through the script. There's only about 4 fucking lines of dialogue per page. So you're sitting there going, this is a 52-page script, and literally there's 3 lines on each page. No wonder Anthony Ainley had to take separate breaks for his rug.
I don't think it's quite the ending J&T thought it was going to be. It's not the one Saward thought it was going to be. I just keep thinking we're better off with Pip and Jane, which you never thought you'd say about a Robert Holmes script.
God knows.
I mean, I know it's not Robert Holmes, but it's still a Robert Holmes ending.
I think it was just really, it was one of those things where when the season was devised, and a lot's been written about this, it was devised originally as a Christmas carol for the Doctor, a past, present, and a future. I get that. I just think that a lot of people, probably Saward chiefly, were in denial about how ill Bob was.
Yeah.
And maybe...
I mean, I think Bob was as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, going back to the kind of the atmosphere of the industry at that time, I think that people were just workhorses. They just plowed through it. You know, there was no kind of contemporary 2025 lens of health and safety or kind of, taking care of oneself in that concept. You just plowed through. You just got the fucking job done.
And Holmes was of even an older school.
Yeah.
He died of liver disease, essentially. Like, he smashed through the booze, I imagine. I mean, I can't say for certain, but I imagine he was a hard drinking, hard smoking individual.
There's those scenes in Who's Doctor, isn't it? The Melvin Bragg documentary, where you just see him like on his pipe in the office. And he's like, you know, if character options made a figure of dear old Bob, he'd just be encased in a plume of smoke, wouldn't he? You know,
it's very sad. It's a sad way to go, because I think
potentially the best writer the show ever had, who just understood the concept of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there much more you want to say on Time Incorporated?
What I found most interesting about this whole farrago, and I like that word, I'm going to use that word again later, is the post-mortem that happened after it.
Right.
And this goes to, interestingly, what happened in the summer of 1986 while this was being all sorts of. So we touched on before how Jonathan Powell was not a fan of the show. Michael Grade was not a fan of the show, but nobody really quite knew what to fucking do with it.
Yeah.
Well, there was attempts made to try and find a direction that didn't involve John Nathan Turner going abroad to Chicago TARDIS. Because in 1986, Michael Grade approached Sidney Newman.
That is true, yeah.
And he asked Newman for his advice on this. Newman then wrote back to Grade with a suggestion that he take control of the series as an executive producer.
Interesting. Imagine bringing an old showrunner back.
Well, it's so many of the account that I'm about to say is that time repeats itself. You could say Time Incorporated repeats itself, yours. But he also then said, not just least an old showrunner coming back to the show, Dylan. No. The old showrunner who was coming back to the show suggested that a former Doctor should come back to the part, in the form of Patrick Troughton coming back for a season.
That would have really been the death of the show, because Troughton would die the next year, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Well, unless they were setting on like the 14 episodes inside a Chicago hotel room, which could have, potentially led to a very different megabyte modem than we ended up with. But Sidney suggested that Patrick should play the role of the Doctor for a single season and then regenerate the character into a female incarnation.
Never happened.
That sound you can hear is all of 2016's online fan base kicking off their shoes.
Yeah, they always deny that Sidney said that.
It's amazing, isn't it? And no, he's literally said, well, and people have gone in and said, well, you can't bring an old actor back. Why not? Yeah. You can't make the character a female. Why not? It's science fiction. You can do fucking anything you want with it.
Also, the people who deny that Sidney said that are also the people that deny that Bob Holmes and Philip Hinchcliffe said that their pictures in Morbius were supposed to be the Doctor, not Morbius.
Which even the BBC's in-house magazine would contradict that. I mean, fucking hell, guy. Denial ain't just a river when you're a Doctor Who fan. It's a fucking way of life. But Grade suggested Newman meet the current then head of drama, Jonathan Powell, and apparently they had a lunch that was bordering on the sort of kind of tumultuous exchange that Zelensky had with Trump and Vance in the Oval Office. It did not go well.
Right.
And so nothing came of the meeting and the ideas were dropped. The document exists. I believe DWM did an article about it in 2017 or so. But it's fascinating, for somebody to say that Newman was just one of the creative minds in the broth. He's accurately predicted several of the turns that the show will take.
Yeah.
Some 30, 35 years later, which is astonishing.
The most surprising thing about Jodie Whittaker being a female Doctor is that it didn't happen sooner,
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, I can't remember, Russ, there was actually a suggestion, and retrospectively, and I love John Hurt, I've met John Hurt, potentially one of the nicest people I've ever encountered in this industry, bar none. But there is an argument that originally that the War Doctor was going to be a female.
That would have been great.
And I believe that there were certain forces within the BBC that wanted Dame Judi Dench.
I mean, I can absolutely see that. What a result that would have been.
So can you imagine, like, the online
She wouldn't have done big for this.
Oh, no way. No way. You imagine in 2013, all the fanboys saying, well, the Doctor can never be a woman. And the answer to that is, well, actually, she already fucking has been.
Yeah, and she was acting royalty, so you can't go,
Correct.
oh, well.
It was fucking N.
You can't, like, if it had been her, you can't turn around and, because everybody blames the writing in the Chibnall era and goes, well, yeah, they didn't write the part properly. I'm not against it. And it's like, but they did write the part properly. It's a different take when it's still a valid take.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do when it's Stephen Moffat writing acting royalty? You can't, you just can't turn your head away.
The one thing that makes me always interested with the Doctor, writing it as a character, is quite simply that the Doctor is the Doctor is the Doctor. Whether you're portraying that character as John Hurt or Joe Martin or Jodie Whittaker or Ncuti Gatwa, the actual character remains the same. There's no real evolution of the character within the show, because to change the character and evolve the character too much would inextricably change the format.
Even the human inventor that Peter Cushing plays is arguably roughly the same character.
It's as close as an approximation you get, which is why it's so easy to say he's been fob watched or something.
Yeah, and
that's not a euphemism for a night out. So,
and even when Big Finish do the unbanned range, even like the bad versions of the character,
the Arabella Weir version still has the same kind of,
absolutely. And also, it wasn't the first time Judi Dench was mentioned with the role. Didn't Jane Tranter or Julie Gardner say they wanted her for Series 1?
Yeah, originally, I believe that Jane Tranter, when she went into it, that the original season in 2004, 2005, was that there was going to be 6 episodes. And Jane Tranter said we should have Judi Dench as the Doctor. So she's always been skirting around the periphery of the idea.
I also think those 6 episodes is what, when Chris Eccleston emailed Ross T. Davidson, I'd love to be considered for the role.
Absolutely.
He thought he was doing 6 episodes, 3 months shooting, not 9 months of hell.
And there is an argument to be said that our beloved show, dear listeners, when it does come back, which we might, I might be nearing retirement by that point. Me and Dylan will be renting out bath chairs on Brighton mud flats, taking it in turns to be Michael Jaston, pushing each other into the mud. But there is an argument that it would do better as a single interconnected 5-episode miniseries. I think certainly that would appeal more in a 2025 landscape to actors.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know why the series has been pushing for longer runs for a long time. It is more of an appeal when it's a 4 to 6 month job for somebody
and
per
it's
year.
So atypical of the. I mean, we've just had 8 episodes, but it's so atypical of most of the industry now. Most of the industry,
every 18 months, 2 years.
18 months, 2 years. 5, 6 episodes top. Your Harlan Coben adaptations, your House of the Dragons, they're all 5, 6 episodes, man. Sometimes
8 max.
8's pushing the boat out a bit, but 5, 6 allows you to kind of have the budget to kind of make it look visually arresting the whole way through and consistent. So we've really been kicking against the grain for a while, which wouldn't be the first time.
Now look, we're getting sidetracked.
We are.
Let's clang, bang, or average meander, Time Incorporated, and then let's talk about the future.
It's as creative a clang as ever clanged.
Agreed.
But it's a worthy effort.
Yeah. And also, I need to give a shout out to Flight Through Entirety, who did a full dramatised version of this episode.
Oh, fuck me. I've not listened to that.
Many years ago. They do a great tongue-in-cheek camp rendition, well worth a listen to.
Guys, that's my afternoon sorted.
It certainly brings this load of old shit to life in a way that is much better than the episode would have been.
Absolutely.
Too hot for TV.
As of right now, we all think the show is dead. Well, you and I think the show is dead. Not everybody does. I've been on Twitter. I've seen what Matthew Purchase has had to say. And maybe it is. Maybe it isn't.
Maybe he's the next showrunner.
Well,
maybe he is.
God help us. I think we both share quite similar views, and that I think I'm going to disagree with you on certain things and what the future looks like. But as of right now, we think the Disney deal is done. And in order for the show to continue, because if it could just continue with the BBC, guaranteed it would have done, it needs to find another streaming partner.
Correct.
And there may be contractual reasons why it hasn't got one yet, or it may be people don't want to touch a property that perhaps is perceived as not at the top of its game. I don't think it's at the bottom of its game in terms of it still does well on British television. It's still a property that makes a lot of money and will continue to, even if the show's off air. But for me, we're a minimum of 3 years away from another series.
Yeah, I mean, I when I speak to people about this, and apologies to several of my ex-girlfriends who I bored into a coma on the issue. I appreciate that relationship discourse is not the usual retread for a Doctor Who podcast. But I always say to people when they talk, I say, you have to understand this shows it's a business, it's a commodity. The reality of it is, and my late father always used to say, if you want the answers to what's going to happen in the future, look back at the past. So looking back at the past, let's use the 1996 moratorium following the TV movie as an example. It was again a co-production, and following that co-production, which didn't work out, these things happen. Whether we're going to blame that on Roseanne Barr's on-screen husband having a heart attack, a backdoor pilot, Trevor Walton scheduling it in a wrong capacity. Who knows? But it didn't work. And the reality of that was, following that pilot, there was a period where Universal elected to keep the rights for a further 12 months to exercise whether they decided they wanted to move forward with the property. I believe, and I would be very surprised if there wasn't a very similar analogous thing happening today.
Yeah.
If that is the case, and we are looking at a 12-month moratorium following terrestrial transmission of the last episode, and that's not including what might be or it might include the War Between the Land and the Sea.
The package was for the Specials 2 series and a spin-off series.
So if we're going with that,
we argue, like, say, War Between, I believe, was originally supposed to broadcast next year, but was suddenly announced as being broadcast this year, possibly to speed up. I think in Russell's mind, for instance, it would have been finish series 2 next year at the beginning of the year. War Between Land and the Sea.
That keeps you satiated for your audience.
And then end of the year, you could probably squeeze in
a Christmas special, maybe.
Yeah, and then start a new series.
Sure.
So the show's always on air.
There's some sort of universe product.
I think there's word that the deal is not continuing, or at least hasn't. I mean, we all know it hasn't been decided, but if that's the case, someone's gone, well, in order to sort of force this decision to be made, let's get it out this year. Yeah. So there's a clean break or a clean way to start again.
I mean, we don't know, dear listener, any more than probably you do know, but let's move forward on the argument that what Dylan has hypothesized is the correct course of action. So if you were to broadcast the War Between the Land and the Sea at the end of this year, and if your order was for 3 specials, 2 seasons, 2 Christmas specials, and a 5-part miniseries, once you've reached the culmination of that, if we're then to say that was a year on, that brings us potentially to December 2026. Any sort of production requires, I would say, and Dylan, you're more versed in the subject than myself, at least probably 6 months of prep.
Well, yeah, and Russell has said, and Moffat has said in the past, and that any series of Doctor Who takes 18 months from start of prep to end of post. That doesn't include the development stage where they're writing, scripts, and they're quite often writing. And we know scripts exist, we don't know what stage they're in.
I think that was probably a iteration of the show that would have continued with a Ncuti Gatwa Doctor for another year, potentially 2, maybe double bank film back to back. Looking at it from that perspective, if we're looking at an 18-month period of production coupled with a genesis period of scripts and ideas, I think realistically your estimate of 3 years is probably about right. I would say that an other streamer would probably want a piece of distance with the property to let it recede into the public's memory so that it becomes more of a nostalgia-based idiom and is more popular to an audience of people who might themselves now be growing up into the next creatives.
I think we forget that the early 90s, people were very nostalgic for Doctor Who. It's after the TV movie, it becomes this hokey wobbly set thing.
Yeah, because in terms of the general public, it's gone away. We've never officially said it was cancelled. We will bring it back in some form or another.
It's all over BBC Two on a Friday night. It's all over UK Gold.
Generation Alan, man. Yeah. God bless you. I'm there. But then it came back and it hit and it failed. And there seemed to be, looking back on it from 97 to 2004, there seems to be this kind of sense in fandom that, like, okay, we did it. We brought it back. It didn't work. It's a retired property. Let's make it and move it forward for that audience. And there's a quiet sense of collective acknowledgement that it's failed.
Fandom starts to take itself less seriously, because also the fans aren't 20-somethings that take themselves too seriously.
And as much as I love the V&As, and that was my bread and butter with the BBC Two Friday night repeats, the Eighth Doctor collective meanderings, be that in audio, comic or book, are a lot more, I would say they're a lot more cohesive as a general whole than the Seventh Doctor iteration. Although you see more the highs are higher from 91 to 96. But collectively, 97 to 2004 is more consistent. Nothing quite reaches your human nature or your revelation. but it's more consistent. There's a more stronger through line. So I think realistically, if we're going with 4 or 5 years now, I think what you're going to see is that the next showrunner will be somebody that probably watched it in as a casual viewer during Tennant and Smith, has moved away from it, and will come in 5-10 years time with their own idea about how to revitalize that
several
property.
successful programs of their own.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one version of it. I think, as you say, maybe it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I also think there's another world where Bad Wolf and Russell are trying to cling on and try and get another series made with a new Doctor. Maybe there's a special with David Tennant or Matt Smith that's BBC only.
Well, shout out to the guys at the We Like to Watch podcast,
right? Which
on the 27th of March, The Guardian reported a quote from their production, and Russell was asked about the future of the Disney deal. And his quote was, "If Disney collapsed tomorrow and we had to go back to making Doctor Who on a normal BBC budget, do you know what? We'd all rally round and make it, and suddenly the stories would be claustrophobic ghost stories." Now that tells you that, like any creative, the brain trust that is in charge of the show have considered avenues alternative to the best case scenario.
Yeah, but I could be wrong. But one of the ways I make my money is there's budget TV shows for all sorts of people. Right now, I've got things bubbling away for the BBC, for A24, and
which reminds me, I need to ask you about the Bonny Blue Christmas special at the end, because I'd quite like to be part of the Q&A.
But my point being, every BBC budget I've done in the last few years has been a co-production, because the BBC can't afford to fund things themselves, apart from things like soap operas and news programs and current affairs.
Well, at the risk of kind of sounding like our dearly beloved J.R. Southall and getting overtly political on it, I genuinely agree with Russell that within this parliamentary government, the BBC as we know it will not exist as an institution. Now, there's been conversations that have been reported in the media with the Culture Secretary about it potentially becoming part of a household utility bill. That's one avenue that they want to go down. But if we're to go forward with that, and it chimes in exactly with what you just said, is that you're going to see co-productions are the norm now.
And we've got to remember that Doctor Who hasn't been made by the BBC for a very long time. It's been made by BBC Studios,
correct,
which is where they've transferred all their valuable assets for when they are a private company. Like, it will be very sad if the purpose of the BBC is both defunded and devalued, but both sides of the fucking left and right have been after that for years, so it seems inevitable. But the BBC will still be a force to be reckoned with, because it's got a huge back catalogue it can exploit, and it's a fucking...
It's a powerhouse.
It's a powerhouse. It's a monster. So, okay, you may not have to pay for it with your TV license, but you'll be paying for it anyway, because you'll suddenly realise all the stuff you're missing out on.
Yeah,
when it is gone, and you'll be going, I used to pay £10 a month for this, and now you're paying 25, which is what all the streamers will cost, and you get fucking shitloads of adverts as well. But we digress.
And you don't even get Michael McIntyre's the fucking wheel.
So I think there is a world where the current showrunners try and eke some more life out of it. But to me, I think that would be a death by 1,000 blows.
Yeah,
I don't think the current showrunners, short of casting an international superstar, are the right people to take it in a new direction, because they tried to take it in a new direction and they took it to the past and then repeated the same shit that they've been doing. That
they genuinely think that whoever plays, and I'm not going to use numbers because I don't believe that. I think we've passed the point now of calling the Doctor the 14th, the 15th, the 68th, or the 387th. But I genuinely believe that Ncuti's permanent successor, whoever he, she, they are, will only be the lead of that franchise for a very short time. So whether it is that 5-part miniseries, whether it is a one-off TV movie, whether it's a theatrical release, that's the bait that will be used to get people back into the idea of Doctor Who as a concept again.
It's interesting you say theatrical release, because we never talk about the movie anymore. It seems like such a dead concept, but there must be somebody somewhere in the BBC, if this is the end, going, well, what's next? Maybe we should try a film again.
Well, I mean, casting our mind back to 1990, part of the reason the show went off the air when it did is because the BBC considered it was looking increasingly shabby. They weren't prepared to invest the money into it themselves to do it. And the Broadcasting Act of 1990 that the then Thatcher government brought in said that they had to farm out, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, listeners here, 25% of its product to independent producers.
And now they have to offer everything out.
Yeah. So people were invited to pitch for it. So I genuinely think that people go on about saying, Peter Cushing and Howell, I had this Machiavellian agenda that they didn't ever want the show to come back and they were going to suffocate it into the world. VHSs were selling by that point. Audios were selling by that point. John Pertwee was on an HMV megastore permanent trip advertising Death to the Daleks in every fucking store in London. But they knew it was financially conducive enough to keep it going. I genuinely think there's probably a world where it would have been tended out to write maybe for 2-3 years. Probably Cinema Verity were going to be the front runner, and it would have probably come back just around the 30th anniversary.
Yeah. I've said this before on this podcast. The thing that held it up was the fact that Philip Siegel pulls up and goes Steven Spielberg.
And that was it.
And why would you want Verity Lambert when you've got Steven Spielberg?
And I get that. I totally understand that. Because, at this point, Spielberg was white hot.
Yeah.
He was in his imperial phase. We just had Hook. Great film.
Yeah.
Remember it? Although I think I got a packet of the trading cards and the chewing gum stuck in the back of my throat. That's another story.
But we're talking Jurassic Park. Schindler's List. Like it's
he was the monolith.
Yeah.
He was the mountain.
He was the biggest creative in the world.
Yeah. So to have that attached to your potentially one of your flagship fantasy products, I mean, I get it. That's going to knock Crime Traveller into the fucking shade. Sorry, Michael Frank.
If the show is away for 3, 5, 10, 15 years, it won't be 15. What does this mean? I said at the start, it's the new Wil-deux-ness or the
Wil-deux-ness. There you go.
What does this mean for spin-off media? Because in the 90s, I don't think it will be like the 90s, but in the 90s, it was very much a time of infinite creativity and nourishing brand new careers.
Well, this brings us right back to the Nightwalkers. I genuinely think that in the short term, because there will be moves afoot to keep the idea and the motor the show forward in some form or another, whether that's a web series, whether that's an animated series, whether that's, but I genuinely think that they will want to motor forward motion and have ongoing adventures of the character in some form. Now, whether that means that we're going to see a Shooty Dormeru, or whether it means that, Shooty's going to be plucked from time mid-regeneration, put into the middle of the Dorchester Hotel to serve as a guest on What's My Mystery, who knows? But I think you're going to see that sort of treading water for maybe a year, maybe 18 months while people work out what they want to do with the brand.
Yeah.
What I'm excited about now is that I genuinely think this provides an opportunity for the young creatives in the industry who did grow up with the 2005 version of the show to come to the franchise and to spin their own Doctor Who legends and sharpen their talents and their narrative takes on the brand to a point before it comes back on television or in its form.
You are seeing that a little bit with the Doctor Who BBC books range at the moment. There are new voices, and they are people like Beth Axford,
Emily Cook, who was in charge of the tweet-alongs, who's now got a 15th Doctor novel coming out.
Yeah.
And she, bless her, I forget what the name of it was, but she recently worked on a series for Apple with Numi Rapace. Absolutely, I can see somebody like Emily being a showrunner. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, what it won't be is suddenly a show run by fans that nobody cares about anymore. It is not the new adventures where anybody can write in and pitch a Doctor Who book.
I'm afraid that we're not going to get a story where Clara Sethu and Ncuti Gatwa go to a futuristic monorail system and talk about the taste of semen on their tongue. Those days have passed, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, unfortunately, for better or for worse, because it's a big brand, and even off screen, it remains a big brand.
Correct.
That will have a brand manager and people in control. It's not, what do we do with this old tat? Someone wants a license, let's give it to them. I think perhaps the slightly more interesting thing is a new showrunner, a new production company, a new streamer. What does that mean for things like Doctor Who Magazine, for things like Big Finish? With the show not being a critical pawn on the chessboard? Do they suddenly go, well, that's really interesting that you've kept the brand alive with all this stuff, but we don't want any of that. We want to make a TV series, and that is the only thing we want out there. And if there's time much, we want it.
I think that we're starting to see creative decisions being made in that direction already. I mean, I love DWM. First issue 203, shout out to Gary Russell in 93. He broke my little fucking heart with the cancellation of the Dark Dimension. But, we're seeing on the cover now, I mean, their lead at time of recording, we're way back in the list of time in March, dear listener. But, it was an interview with Waris Hussein and an image of William Hartnell on the front. We're 5 weeks away from the start of the new season, and we're leading with an interview about the production of Marco Polo. So there is an increased concentrated effort to look at the past.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're moving your brand towards a point where you have to rely more on that back catalogue to justify the future progression of it, I think that's entirely the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Mayday isn't the end of the series, because as we mentioned, there's war between the land and the sea.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on what we might see there, or what you hope to see there?
Well, from the reports that we've seen in the paper, it looks like Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water will be putting in a cease and desist request. Because if you've ever wanted to see, dear listener, Russell Tovey engaged in some sort of piscine fornication with Gugu and Bart Aurora wearing a lot of scales, I think you might well be in luck.
Oh, well, I have. That was always been my biggest...
Oh, so you were the guy that was writing the letters. Yeah. That's why they called it the Day of Action. Here I was thinking it was just a coordinated campaign for me and Levine and his animation.
It's very interesting that the final bit of Doctor Who we see on our TVs for some time would be a show that doesn't even feature the Doctor.
Yeah.
The fact that Kate Stewart could see us off into the wilderness.
Well, she greeted us at Deimos Rising in 2004, so we've gone full Cressman.
I wonder if there's moves afoot, or maybe it's already happened, to go, do you know what, maybe we need something. And if it's not Ncuti Gatwa, it's David Tennant, isn't it? Just as a little coda or something like that.
I genuinely think if you're trying to motor along with some sort of Bad Wolf production, a one-off special of 14 and Donna at some point as a sidestep
again
is probably the most potential possibility that we're looking at.
And if it's not that, it's Matt Smith with either of his companions, because both of those companions are massive now. So
absolutely, and they're now household names. And Karen again has said that she'd come back specifically to do something with Matt Nash.
Yeah.
It's happened before. It can happen again.
Indeed.
So let's book our spot in Camden.
Very interesting times, and people may be sat here listening to this 2-3 months later and going, well, that didn't happen, that didn't happen. And, happy to be wrong, but isn't it amazing how the show, even at this point in its life, where a lot of people may interpret our discussion as that we're pessimistic and negative about it, but actually I would say that this situation we now find ourselves in potentially will give us the springboard to launch this show again in 10 years' time and make it an even bigger success than it was in 2005. And I'll see you at the 100th anniversary convention.
Yeah, man. We'll be there in matching bath chairs like Rosie and Jim on the old ragdoll.
Anything else you want to say about the future, the past, the present?
Well, as we step away from the 21st century version of Doctor Who, dear listener, I look forward to checking in with you all in the Wil-deux-ness and seeing what new avenues the character is going to be taking on. Yeah, Emily Cook is showrunner. That's my bet. There you go. Mark it, viewers.
There we go. I've been very negative on Ncuti Gatwa's first season. I've not seen his second at this point, so I cannot comment. But whether I loved it or loathed it, as you say, there's this. I don't want to come across as being pessimistic or negative. I think the show will go on and on and
absolutely.
on and on and on. And I'll be very happy to see how it evolves. The thing that annoys me most about the current iteration is the fact that if it was doing something amazing and new that just wasn't for me, I'd be happy to see it flourish with a new audience, but it hasn't found a new audience. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not doing anything new. And so it's not that I dislike Doctor Who. I've just got a bit of Doctor Who fatigue.
But there's sparks of it though, Dylan. Do you know what I mean? I look at last year and 73 yards was astonishing. To take an M.R. James ghost story for Christmas and cross that with a dystopian political kind of nightmare, essentially telling a Christmas carol with the character, is brilliant. Now, it was entirely a story born out of a necessity of the non-availability of the lead, but that showed me, I mean, I was thrilled with that, because there's no analogous version of 73 Yards in 2005 or 2010 or 2013.
Yeah.
I just think that we needed more of that sort of, if you're going to pardon the pun, thinking outside the blue box.
Indeed.
But Shooty himself, I think, an amazing actor. I think he'll go on to huge fucking success in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll be appearing at Chiswick in Phantom films for the foreseeable future.
And I think you'll see him at Comic Cons in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
And the adverts and the banners won't even mention Doctor Who.
No, absolutely.
Because he'll be head of a franchise that's much bigger.
Yeah. And it'll be
leads
a
on.
footnote in his career.
Exactly.
Because he's that good.
There we go. What a note to it. Should we end it there?
Let's end it there, guys.
Okay,
Let's end it there.
Until next time, when we are fully immersed in the Wil-deux-ness, I've been Dylan.
And I've been your president.
And this has been Doctor Who Too Hot for TV.
See you out there, guys.